Alright, so hey guys, this is Ron and welcome to the Rockstar Paint class. Today we're going to be painting something I call Pearl, which is a tribute to the legendary female 60s artist Janis Joplin. Like always, we're going to be painting with Alpha 6 acrylic paint. It's a paint I use faithfully. It's got a great consistency to it. I think you guys are going to like it. Included with the kit that you have in front of you is all the colors from Alpha 6 that you're going to need to complete this portrait along with me. Like art, and if you've painted with me before, you've heard me say, you guys can follow along with me, or you have all the tools that you need to make your own canvas, your own portrait rather. So I would encourage you to do that. Aside from the paint, you're also going to find two brushes, a wedge brush and a fine brush. This is the wedge brush here, so it's a little thicker. I like to use it a lot. It'll cover a lot more canvas for me. It gives me a different little bit of a texture with the paint, so I use this quite a bit. And then we use the fine brush to go in and clean up a lot of the edges and stuff. So you'll see when we use that. Also, you're going to need a palette. I use these little plastic palettes here because I'm going to be standing, so it's got little trays to hold the paint in. But you can use a paper plate or a regular kitchen plate. This paint will clean off fairly easily on a kitchen plate. So get yourself something flat, something smooth that you can actually put the paint on, keep it separate so it doesn't smear together. And then paper towel, you're going to need that to clean the brushes off, and a little tiny cup of water or access to a sink. We can wash the colors off as we need to. The canvas you have has already been a little bit done already by me. So you've got the outline of Janis's face going on there. And what we're going to do over the next hour and a half is we're going to color it in with a little bit of an impressionistic feel. Give herself some color where there wouldn't normally be color. And the way we do this is we start off with our lighter colors and then go to our darker colors, and I cycle through those. So for instance, we're going to start with yellow, we'll wind up with black. And then if I want to go back, we might cycle through yellow more than one time depending on the look and feel we're looking to go with. So with that said, I think we're going to start with our wedge brush. Alright, I'm going to put a little bit of yellow on that brush. You'll notice that I don't use a lot of paint, especially to start with, because I kind of want to feel out where my lines are going to go. Okay, and then the heavier the paint, the longer it's going to take to dry. So for purposes of this video, we want to make it dry as fast as humanly possible. So a little bit of yellow, a little bit of paint goes a long way. So what I want to do is I want to start, you'll see I've indicated where she's got her sunglasses on. So I'm going to go inside this ring here, all right, and then I want to complete the circle. So take it right down to where I've got that other piece that starts here. Okay, so look, we've just made the complete circle. And then once you get that there, what I want to do is I want to fill it in. So color all of this yellow. And what you'll see what I'm doing, a little bit of paint on the brush, and I use the actual side width of the brush to just smear the paint over the canvas. Okay, so you don't have to constantly stroke at the canvas. You can basically just push the side of the brush. It'll get all the paint off the brush and fill in the area nice for you. And also, it lays it on thin. Remember, you kind of want to get it on thin at first because that'll let it dry faster for you, and it'll allow us to move on to the next color without a lot of downtime. All right, so fill in that entire circle underneath that eye. And you'll notice I don't really care right now if I get paint on the black, because I'm going to clean that up later. But what I don't want to do is leave white. So when you go walk up to the canvas, I don't want to see white in between the colors. All right, you're going to want to put color on that. All right, so moving on now. All right, there's that white ring that makes her sunglasses. So let's leave it. Leave that little white ring, and we're going to come down along her chin, right here, the side of her cheek to her chin, and let's draw a little bit of a line, sort of like that. Just indicate right down to the curve of her face. See how that is? It's just riding right along the black. All right. What I want to do now is let's make a mark. We'll call it there. It's about a ½ an inch underneath where her teeth are. That's going to be her bottom lip. Okay. So with that little line, I'm going to fatten it up a little bit like this. All right. And then I'm going to curl it. Little semicircle over to meet where I did the yellow before. And then what I want to do is I want to fill that in right from the teeth on over. All right, again, push the paint into the canvas. So what you'll notice, especially on the woman portraits, I don't have a lot of color on the face, nor there are a lot of lines. All right, we want to keep that soft. If we put a lot of color and a lot of shadow, their face starts to become more hard, more masculine. Okay, and for these particular subjects, you know, like we've done Stevie Nicks, Janis Joplin, Aretha Franklin, they've got a very, very soft face, and we kind of want to keep that. The darker colors are going to bring out more of an intense face, and we don't want that right now. Okay, continuing on. Let's go over here to the side of her face on this side, and we're going to also create yellow. So think again in terms of we're going to complete that circle. So that circle is going to ride right along here, okay, up the side, right to that point of her eye. All right, come right to that corner of the eye. And again, sketch it first if you're not too sure. You know, little bit of paint, and then stand back and take a look. Does it look like a circle? You know, you might have to add a little more depth to one side of it. All right, and then the same thing. All the way underneath that eye, let's color that in yellow. Pushing that paint into the canvas, it'll allow it to go on smooth and let it dry faster. All right, and I'm going to creep that up a little bit higher there. Okay? I'll smooth it out. So that's what we should be looking at, something like that. All right, cut this out because this fucking thing keeps going to sleep on me. All right, so staying with the yellow, I'm going to come up underneath this where her forehead is by her hairline. And I'm going to give myself some yellow right along that edge there. All right, and just push that right into the canvas. Okay? Now, the most part, if you've seen the actual image that we're painting from, the portrait, you'll notice a lot of this is she's got some crazy hair going on. So what I want to start doing now is indicating some of that. Okay, so starting with, think about it, for her scalp being up here, all right, that hair is going to grow in this direction. Okay, and then it comes out this way. So give yourself that indication. That's how her hair grows, and that's how we want to indicate where the streaks of color are going to be that actually represent hair. And what I'm doing again is it's not a lot of paint, so it's going on light. So the yellow over the black almost looks green. Okay, so in theory you're getting a free color out of it. Sort of like that. We'll give a couple indications of how the hair is. You can hear the brush, how dry the paint is. And I'm just scratching away at that, just to start to show where the hair goes. And her hair it's the way she's got this done up in the photograph that we used for a reference. It's wild. Okay, so you're going to want to mix up that trajectory of that pattern a bit, but just keep in mind there's got to be some sort of symmetry to it. So follow along where this piece being here, we're going to kind of start to curl this in a slightly different direction. Okay, because apparently she's got something in her hair that's actually twisted her hair and made the hair flow in a different direction, so we kind of want to indicate that. So you'll see the pattern start to cross. All right, up here it's growing this way. So let's get that going there as well. All right, continuing over here, just again indicating a little bit of color, a little bit of motion. Down bottom. You're not trying to cover the canvas. You're just showing where there be highlights for her hair. You know, while we're down here, let's put a little bit of yellow in this bracelet. Again, there's no rhyme or reason to this. I'm just adding a bit of color. You know, if you've painted with me before, the one thing that we always want to do is make sure the colors go all around the canvas. We never leave a section of isolated color. So if there's yellow up top, there's going to be some port of yellow down bottom. So we just want to indicate that there's some color going on in that bracelet thing she's got here. You know, nothing major, just indicate it there. All right, and then we can continue on over here with some hair. Starting from that center point, it all spouts out from there, right? So keep that as like our main focal point. You know, some down here. And it's kind of cool, if you put too much paint on the canvas, just push it around. You know, it'll give you that feathered look. And again, for the hair, it's perfect. You know, you don't want hard lines. You want that wispy line that actually fades off into nothing. Right? We'll give a little bit more yellow up here. All right. And then this piece here, again, she's got something in her hair, some kind of hair ornament or decoration. Let's put some color on it. We can go in and fill it in later. But just to indicate that it's there. Then lastly, with the yellow, what I want to do is indicate this hand. Again, we're not going to put a lot of color on that hand, but let's just go in and give a shadow side to it. All right. So you'll see what I did is I started up at this shape here, and I came right down this followed the line of that black line, which is indicating a finger. All right, and I went and filled that little section in like that. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on this one. See the little V I made? Leave that there, and then fill this section in. All right. Now, her hand, she's got one finger up, one down where she's holding these glasses. So this finger is going to have shadow on it. So let's come right down the side of this right here and put a shadow of yellow up against the black. All right, so you got something like that there. And then last but not least, we're going to come in here and put a little indication of yellow there. And I think a little bit inside that finger there. Again, it's very nondescript, and I don't want to get very technical with it because I kind of like how the stark white highlight shows me that her hand is there, but I don't really need to see all the details on it. So just a little bit of an indication of yellow and color like that will give me what I'm looking for. All right, so take your time, get caught up to that, and once you've got that all blocked in with yellow, let it dry for a few minutes. This way we can go on to the next color without smearing it. All right, and we'll be back in a second. All right, so now that that yellow is dry, and I mean, you just take your finger and tap it. I mean, you'll see that the paint dries fairly quick, all right? So make sure it's dry. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to really wet this brush. I'm just going to take the excess paint and just pull it off and dry it into my paper towel, all right? Because I'm going on to orange, and orange and yellow are complement colors, so if they touch and smear, it's not going to bother me too much. So there's no real reason to waste our water on that now. Now what I want to do with orange, all right, is I'm going to go over the yellow that I had with some of the orange, not to cover it completely because I want to keep some of it on there. But there's some areas that are going to be pure orange. So again, we've got our ring for our glasses, right? So you can see where this little line is up here. What I want to do now is come off that line there, and I want to bring that right down the bridge of her nose, which is basically that other black line I have there. All right, so you've got that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to where this corner is on her nostril where it's black, and I'm going to come across. All right, and I'm going to meet that line there. And then I'm going to fill this in. All right, so we've created a shadow on one side of her nose. All right, and then what we want to do is we're going to take this and we're going to come underneath this sunglass ring. All right, leave yourself some of that white because we'll go back and paint that in there. But right underneath it, we're going to create this shadow over here. So you see I've completed the circle. And again, don't be worried if it's not exactly perfectly round. We've got some white paint and we'll go back and we'll fix that ring of white later. Okay, so just keep that in mind with that circle there. And then I want to fill this in down bottom. Right along that cheek. Okay, I think I'm going to make this a little bit softer here. So you see this little curve I put down here? Get that alongside of her jawline. Right where it meets the black. So you're on top of the yellow. Just give yourselves a little bit of line along that there. Okay, we're going to come into the cheek here. Okay, and I want to just see how I've got the yellow, or the orange rather. I'm just pushing it into the canvas right under that line. And then I'm just going to blend that color into the yellow. And you can see I'm still keeping that curve. All right, follow it right along there. And now, what I want to do is dry whatever paint you've got on the brush. And with that dry brush, come to the edge. And you see how I'm just literally scraping paint into the canvas? And you can see how it'll start to feather for you. Okay, so you're blending those two colors together just by using a dry brush with very little paint on it. All right, you see how it softened that edge right up there? That's exactly what you want. Okay, you just keep pushing that paint into the canvas to get it as soft as you want. But if there's too much paint on your brush, you won't be able to do that. So if you're starting to notice you're getting a hard line, dry the brush off even more, and then just swirl that paint into the canvas. All right, we're going to continue to do the same thing on this side. All right, little bit of paint on the brush, and then I'm just literally pushing it into the canvas. So I'm leaving myself almost this little yellow ball that makes her chin up, right in the middle here. All right, I want to get a little bit of this orange underneath her eye to show where the bag under her eyelid is, but I want to keep that pure yellow right there in the middle. All right, that'll be a nice pretty section of yellow on her face, and we want to keep that pure. All right. So we're going to move on now where we put that line underneath her chin, or her lip rather. We're going to give a little orange, heavier orange shadow for that there. Just like I did before. All right, I took the excess paint off my brush, and now I'm going to blend this up into that corner, and this is going to create her bottom lip. All right, it makes it soft. See that line is feathered, all right? It's not a hard line. So that'll push that in there, and then I'll just get a little more paint to complete the top part here. All right, again, it's soft, all right? That's exactly what we want. You want that little curve to it, and let it complete the line like that. All right. This side of her eyeglass, we're going to do the same thing. Right on the inside where we have our yellow, just a little bit of orange paint. Same way we did the other one. It's dry. Once the brush is dry, just push that paint out into the yellow. Just feather it a bit. All right, you're looking like something like that. All right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this entire white section underneath, which is her neck, underneath her face here, and let's paint that entire thing orange. Okay, black to black, fill it all in. You know, make sure you cover the canvas now. You don't want to see any white. Okay. All right, like we said before, we want to move that color around. So let's add just a little bit of color into these bracelets here. Again, no rhyme or reason. Don't spend a lot of time or overthink it. Just hinting that there's some color going on there. All right. Now what I think we're going to do is we'll put some orange in her hair. Because again, we're going to push that color around. Not a lot. But let's just add a little bit of color up into some of this sections of her hair. All right, keep the brush fairly dry. You know, let it get that little wispiness to it. All right, you're gonna want that. Again, side of the brush. Just pushes color around the canvas. I'll put a little bit up here too, right around that hair shadow. Alright. Alright, so once we've got that done, let's rinse out that brush, let that orange set up and dry for a couple minutes. Alright, and when we come back, we're going to probably go into some red and some of the blues, which will really give us some good contrast. So make sure your brush is good and clean and the canvas is dry, and we'll be back in a second. Alright, so moving on. Again, no real need to clean the brush as long as the brush is still loose. So you might want to put some water on it just to loosen up the paint. But we're going to go on to red, and obviously the red coming off of the orange, it's a complement color as well. So there's no real need to get a clean brush for it. So I'm going to start on this side with the hair, and I'm going to add a little more color like we did with the other ones. Dry brush, edge of the brush, wispy little lines. Alright, following how her hair should be, the flow of her hair. Alright, so you kind of got a nice little red section on that one there. Alright, we'll bring some of that red up into here as well. Okay? Now continue it down here. And again, I'm trying not to cover the paint that I put on before. I don't care if it overlaps, but I don't want to basically just dominate the other colors I put on with a new color. That's not the point. These are supposed to be adding depth, so you're going to want to fill in the areas that you haven't colored yet. Alright, so let's stay in the hair for the time being. Some up top. Maybe a little bit over here. Alright, and we'll catch some indication of red down there. So the red all around the canvas. Okay, so the way we did it earlier with the orange over the yellow, what I want to do now is I want to come closer to the edge of her cheek with the red. Alright, and do the same exact thing. Remember how we just kind of pushed that color into the yellow, or into the orange into the yellow? I'm going to push that red into the orange. Alright, so see what I've got here? I've got 3 layers of color. And it doesn't have to blend perfectly, just enough so you don't have a hard edge. Okay, and a dry brush will do that for you. Too much paint will not. So if you're starting to struggle with it, that means you've got too much paint on the brush. And I'll go right underneath that thing as well. Do the same thing. I want to fill in that little bit of white. Alright, and go right up the side. So you see we've created a darker shadow over there. Alright, it'll give her face a little more contrast. Alright, I'm going to take a little bit of red and come up here underneath where I've got that ring of her glasses. And just put a little bit of red like that up top. Alright. I want a little more color on that side there. So I'm going to give her that. Alright, and then what I want to do is I want to take this orange here and I want to darken that up. Again, see how I did the same way with the little bit of featherness. Feathered that color, that red, right into that orange. Alright, I'll fix those little lines there. But again, you see, I kind of left the circle of the glasses. Alright, and we're going to go back and we're going to fix that with white in a bit. But you can see how it's starting to take shape there. Alright, let's get a little bit of shadow inside this line here. Alright, the circle's starting to come that way. Now what I want to do with the red is I want to come down here in the orange, and the same way I feathered it in the glasses, I'm going to push it into the canvas as well. Alright, heavier on the top, where it meets the black, and then literally feather it into the orange. See the effect it's giving you? And I'll come right down this one side of the black. And don't be afraid to get it over the black. Like I said before, you're going to. That's fine, because we're going to paint that black in a bit. Alright, but you see how that gave us a little bit of hint of red on the orange? It darkened up the orange. Alright, so that's the effect we're looking for. Make sure you've got no white areas where the color meets the black or vice versa. Alright. Lastly, with the red, let's go back and we'll put a little bit of red in our bracelet. This is kind of like the garage here for all our colors. Every color we do, it gets a little bit of an indication in this bracelet. All right, so you're making a kind of a little hodgepodge of colors down there, but it's fine. That's exactly how we want it to look. All right. So let that dry, clean off the brush. All right, we're gonna come back in a few minutes and we're gonna go to blue. All right, so now that if they're coming back now, the red should be fairly dry. Again, give it the little finger touch there to make sure it is. All right, the brush is cleaned off, and actually you're gonna wanna clean the brush this time, all right? Get the red off of it and then dry it off. And then we're gonna put the brush into the light blue color we have. And this is where I think the hair is really going to start to take shape. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on this. And I'll start with this top corner here. Again, keeping in mind the way the direction of the hair is flowing, that we've got these lines already. Let's start to do this with the blue. You know, and you're going to notice the blue's a very strong color and it looks really cool against the black. So let that feather happen. All right, don't go really heavy. Let that black canvas come through. You know, you're going to want those little wispy lines, all right, because it's hair. You know, there's no hard edge to it. So let's make it, we'll keep it that way. Same thing, starting from that center out, where we made that point in the middle. Everything's coming out of it that way. So that's going to go up that way as well, opposite directions. All right, I want to indicate where she's got this hair coming down now. So let's do this. Get a little color on top of that black. We'll do the same on the other one. All right, bring that down, put some color on top of her head. A little bit of blue there. And again, it's random, but you're going to want to indicate it all over. You know, just a slight hint all around the canvas will make quite the difference. You know, while we've got it over here, let's color the rest of this thing in blue. Because the blue's got a really nice reaction against that black, so it looks really pretty. And again, how we did before, fade it into the yellow. You don't need a hard line there. Push it into the yellow and get yourself that little blend. All right, maybe we do something like this to indicate that. All right, got some blue over here. Maybe a line or two in there. So again, you see I'm giving kind of a uniform area of blue. Every place we're looking at has got something touched. Okay, so we want to continue that all around. You know, like we said earlier, no one area is isolated color. All right, I'm going to take the blue and I'm going to color this white area in on her hand. I want that to be blue as well, so let's do that while we're here. Whoops. All right, one thing I'm going to do to get a shadow over here, I'm going to do it again on this side. And let's bring this line right down that black line here. Down to her bracelets. All right, a little indication of shadow on the hand. I think that looks pretty cool. So we'll keep that. Here's our color garage in our bracelets, right? So let's add a little bit of that blue in there as well. All right, so we got a little bit of a little mess going on there, but it works. All right, I want to come in now a little tighter in the face. We're going to come into the eyes and put some blue. All right, how about a little bit under her eye right there? I'm going to come up above the eye also. And I'm going to fill in all the way up to the black where we put that little bit of red. And then just let it fade off. Okay, let it stay white in the middle there. I want to keep that white. Let's do the same on the other eye. Fill in that eyelid. All right, we'll do a little bit of blue in the corner here. You know, just let it streak off. And then what I want to do is, you'll see on top here, I want to come inside of this eyeglass ring. All right, and give an indication of color in there. Something like that. And then we can, like with our dry brush, we can push that blue into her eyelid. All right, and don't complete it. Let it fade off like that. All right, that'll give us a kind of a cool effect there. Hit this fucking thing again. Yep. All right, and at this point in time, you know, stand back, take a look at how this looks. You know, do you have enough paint around the canvas? Do you have indication? I mean, like I'm noticing now, we have no blue over here. So we're going to want to add a little bit of that in there. We want that color all around. You know, so let's add just a little bit of hint in there. It doesn't have to be as heavy, but it just goes all around. We want that there. All right. Now she's got some rings going on up here, but again, I don't want to really spend time on them. But let's just give them a hint of blue on that as well. I think that'll help those out. All right, make sure your blue is touching your blacks wherever it needs to be. All right, we can go back and we can add stuff in there, but let's make sure the paint's on here to begin with. All right. So after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse this blue off. All right, and the one last thing I want to do before I go to black, okay, let's clean the blue off, is grab that orange again on our brush. And what I want to do is I want to give her a very, very thin upper lip line. All right, Janis does not have a very large upper lip, so we're not going to give that to her. We're going to give it nice and thin. Just go right along top of that, where that black line is that indicates where her teeth are. From corner to corner. Like that. Make sure we get the corner. Alright? Just a ever so subtle lip line. So this way she does have an upper lip. We want to indicate it. Alright? So with that said, let's let that dry. Finish up your blue. Get the lip line going on there. And we're going to come back and we're going to tighten it up with black. Alright, so now that that's dry, alright, you give it your little thumb test there, you're good to go. We want to get some black on the brush. And this is where we're going to go and we're going to tighten up all those lines, okay? So any place where we've overshot, you know, that we want to bring back the edges, that's what we're going to do now. So usually, I definitely want to do it along the cheekbone where the line of the face is, because that's important. We want to get that line back to where her cheek is, because that's really what kind of distinguishes who she is as far as her character. So make sure that line comes back, you know, as well as the black in her eyes. You know, you're going to want to bring all that back as well. And this is the point too where everybody's is going to be a little different. You know, I know by doing this what I've overshot, so you might not have done it so heavy in that area. So if that's the case, you don't have to spend this much time on that. But just go back and figure out where you need to clean up and clean it up. You know, bring back all the blacks. You know, especially along the outline of the white, you definitely want to clean up all those edges. Yeah, I definitely want to make sure I get the eyes back. All right, because some of that blue bleeds in there, that'll look weird. You know, especially the eyelids, we want those back as well. So make sure you get those in there. All right, anywhere where there's white, we can fix that as well. You know, we could throw some black into the hair too to define some of those hairlines. You know, nothing wrong with that as well. Gives a little bit of a chunkier look to the, you know, the patterns we did before. Okay, bring that line back. A little bit over here too. Bring this up a little bit. Alright, so she's starting to take shape now. I think the one last thing we're probably going to want to do, and let's get some black down here, is grab the white and fix those rings for her glasses. Oh, you know what? Wait, before we do that, let's go put this little thing here. How about that? Alright, put the bridge on her nose where the glasses would be. Alright, she's going to need that. And that should probably tie in over here, a little bit over there. Okay? All right. So rinse that off. All right, and make sure if you got a sink, it's probably a good idea to put it in the sink to get that black paint off there if we're going to go to white. And you know, just be conscious now of the areas you've touched in black. You don't want to run the white over top of them. But I just want to clean up some of the rings that I've got paint on. You know, so the white's almost going to be our color eraser, so to speak. You know, you go in and complete those circles. All right, and lastly, what I kind of want to do is I want to get some white in the hair. So sparingly, we'll put some highlights in her hair. I don't want it too much or she'll look like she's got gray hair. But a couple of white highlights I think would be pretty cool. You know, ever so slightly, just an indication. Alright, something like that. So, you guys should have enough paint. If you want to continue painting, obviously, by all means, continue on. And I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. It was great having you guys join me, and I look forward to talking to you guys again. Have a good one.